Japan in summer is not gentle. Anyone who has been there in July or August knows exactly what I'm talking about. The humidity wraps around you the moment you step outside. The heat isn't dry and manageable, it's thick and heavy and relentless, pushing back against you everywhere you go. Tokyo summers regularly push above 95 degrees Fahrenheit with humidity levels that make it feel like you're breathing warm soup. And yet, for most of Japan's long history, air conditioning simply didn't exist. Homes had no compressor on the wall, no vents in the ceiling, no thermostat to set at 68 and forget about. They had design, material, habit, and a set of techniques built up over centuries specifically to push back against brutal heat without mechanical help. Now I want to be honest with you, because most videos won't bother. Modern Japan uses air conditioning. A lot of it. Walk through any Japanese city in August and you'll hear the hum from every building and feel the blast from every open shop door. This is not a country that has rejected modern cooling. What's interesting and what's genuinely worth bringing home with you is that the traditional techniques for staying cool without it are still used, still understood, and still work remarkably well, even alongside modern air conditioning, to reduce how much you need to rely on it. In a world where energy bills keep rising and summer heat keeps intensifying, knowing how an entire civilization stayed comfortable through centuries of brutal summers without a plug in the wall is genuinely useful. Today I'll walk you through 7 of those techniques. Stay with me until number 4 because it's the one that uses pure physics in a way so simple and so elegant it will quietly change how you think about your own home forever. Let's get into it. Number 1. Sudare. The woven reed screens hung over windows and verandas to filter heat. Here's the cooling problem that every window creates. Glass lets in light and light carries heat. In summer, a sun-facing window acts like a lens, pouring heat directly into the room behind it all day long. The Western solution is heavy curtains or blinds. Close them to block the heat and you also block all the light and all the air movement. The room gets dark and stuffy. You've traded heat for gloom. Sudare solves this differently. These are finely woven screens of reed, bamboo, or grass, hung outside the window or just inside it, angled to block the angle of direct sunlight while still allowing air to pass through freely. They filter rather than block. Light becomes diffused and soft instead of being eliminated entirely. Air still moves through the fine weave. The room stays bright and airy while the direct solar heat, the worst kind, gets interrupted before it can reach the glass. There is also a psychological and sensory dimension to this that matters. Sitting in a room behind Sudare screens is a qualitatively different experience from sitting in a room behind dark curtains. Light filters through in a warm, dappled way that feels like being under trees. Combined with a breeze moving through, the effect is cooling in a way that goes beyond the measurable temperature. You can buy Sudare screens in most Asian home goods stores or online for very little money. They hang easily, store flat, and are used only in summer, making them one of the most practical and affordable cooling tools on this entire list. Here's the shift. On any window that takes direct sunlight in the afternoon, put up a reed or bamboo screen on the outside. Block the sun before it hits the glass, not after it's already inside. You'll feel the difference within a single afternoon. Number 2. Uchimizu. The practice of sprinkling water on the ground around the home. This one sounds almost too simple to work, and yet it's based on perfectly sound physics and has been a Japanese summer ritual for centuries. In the morning and again in the late afternoon, water is poured or sprinkled onto the pavement, the garden path, the entryway stone, the ground surrounding the home. As that water evaporates in the heat, it draws thermal energy from the surrounding surface and air. This is evaporative cooling, the same principle behind sweating, the same principle behind a wet towel on your forehead. Evaporation requires heat energy to work, and it takes that energy directly from whatever is nearby. The surface cools. The immediate surrounding air cools along with it. The breeze that then passes over that cooled ground carries noticeably cooler air into the home. The timing matters. Morning sprinkling cools the surfaces before they've had a chance to absorb the full heat of the day. Afternoon sprinkling, done around 3 or 4 when the heat peaks and the sun begins to angle lower, provides relief exactly when you need it most and when evaporation is fastest. Done right, it creates a meaningful drop in the perceived temperature of the immediate outdoor and near indoor space without consuming any electricity at all. In modern Japanese cities, Uchimizu campaigns still run in summer, encouraging residents and businesses to splash water on the pavement as a community cooling strategy. It's an ancient practice that remains genuinely useful in the present day. Here's the shift. Before the hottest part of your afternoon, pour a bucket of water on the pavement outside your door or on the ground nearest your windows. Let the evaporation do its work. It's free, it's immediate, and it takes about 30 seconds. Number 3. Traditional Japanese homes were built to breathe in a specific way. Walk into a traditional Japanese house and notice immediately how open it is. Thin walls, sliding screens rather than solid doors, rooms that can be opened completely to the outside and to each other, nothing blocking the passage of air from one side of the structure to the other. This isn't an aesthetic choice, or not only an aesthetic choice, it's a thermal engineering decision. When cooler air can enter from the shaded side of a building and warmer air exits from the opposite side where heat rises, you get a continuous, gentle, natural cross breeze that moves heat out of the space without any mechanical help at all. This is called passive ventilation, and it works based on the simple physical principle that warm air rises and cool air fills the space beneath. In Western homes, rooms are often closed off from each other by solid doors and solid walls, meaning air can't move through the building the way it would through an open plan. You trap the hot air in each room and then try to cool each room individually, which is enormously expensive and inefficient. Traditional Japanese architecture eliminates the trap entirely. You can apply this principle to any home by simply managing your openings thoughtfully. Open windows on the cool north or shaded side in the morning. Open windows or doors on the opposite side of the house to create the through draft. Close the south-facing windows during peak afternoon heat and reopen everything in the evening when outdoor temperatures fall. Here's the shift. Map the sun around your home this week. Know which side is hottest at which time of day. Then manage your windows and interior doors to create a path for air to move through rather than get trapped inside. Free cooling, based entirely on physics, available to any home with more than one window. Number 4, everything in the home is made of materials that release heat quickly rather than storing it. This is the physics lesson I promised you. Every material has what scientists call thermal mass, which is its capacity to absorb and store heat. Dense, heavy materials like concrete, brick, and thick carpeting have high thermal mass. They absorb heat slowly through the day and then release it slowly through the night, which in winter is useful and in summer is a nightmare. A concrete home in summer is essentially a slow-release oven that peaks in heat long after the sun has gone down. Traditional Japanese homes are built almost entirely from low thermal mass materials: thin wood, rice paper screens, tatami mat flooring, woven grass, and bamboo. These materials absorb heat quickly, yes, but they also release it quickly. The moment the outdoor temperature drops in the evening and a breeze comes through, these materials shed their heat almost immediately rather than holding it for hours. This is why a traditional Japanese room can cool down dramatically in 20 minutes once the evening air comes in, while a heavily furnished Western room with thick carpets and upholstered furniture might still feel stuffy at midnight. The materials themselves are either helping you or working against you, and most Western homes are filled with materials that store and hold the summer heat long after you desperately want it gone. Here's the shift. In your most used summer rooms, reduce heavy soft furnishings on the floor and replace where you can with natural fiber mats, or simply leave the floor bare. When the evening cools, open everything up immediately rather than waiting. Low thermal mass means you can shed the heat quickly, but only if you let the cool air in the moment it arrives. Number 5. Furin. Glass wind chimes hung to make the heat feel cooler than it is. Before you dismiss this one as pure decoration, stay with me for a moment because the science behind it is more interesting than it sounds. When you hear a furin wind chime ringing gently in the breeze, you perceive movement of air. Your brain, trained over a lifetime to associate that sound with coolness, wind, and outdoor freshness, responds with a genuine reduction in perceived temperature. This is not imaginary. Research in thermal comfort has consistently shown that people report feeling meaningfully cooler in environments with subtle sensory cues associated with coolness, breezes, water, and natural sound, even when the measured temperature is identical. Perception of temperature is not entirely separate from actual temperature experience. It's part of it. The sound of water moving, the sight of swaying bamboo, the gentle ring of glass in a breeze, these activate cooling associations at the level of the nervous system. The furin isn't lying to you, it's signaling what's true. Air is moving, and where air moves, heat is leaving. The chime makes that signal audible and your body responds accordingly. Furin are hung at the edge of a veranda or near a window where air movement will catch them. A still furin in still air is silent, telling you there's no breeze. A ringing furin tells you a breeze has arrived, and that information alone changes the felt experience of the room. Here's the shift. Hang a glass or ceramic wind chime near the window most likely to catch a breeze. Listen for it during the afternoon. The moments it rings are the moments to open that window fully and let the moving air do its work. Let the sound be your cooling alert system. Number 6. What they wear at home in summer is engineered for the heat as deliberately as the architecture. The yukata, the light cotton robe worn informally at home and at summer festivals, is not just traditional dress. It's a thermal management garment. Loose, single layer, woven from thin cotton that allows air to circulate freely against the skin. No tight waistbands trapping heat at the core, no synthetic materials creating a warm, sealed layer against the body. Just thin, natural fabric moving freely in the air. The principle extends to all home clothing in summer: linen, thin cotton, natural fabrics with open weaves. Materials that wick moisture rather than holding it against the skin, that create a small gap between fabric and body where air can move, that allow the body's own evaporative cooling, sweating, to actually work as it was designed to rather than being trapped against you. Western summer clothing at home tends toward the opposite. Heavy cotton t-shirts, tight waistbands, synthetic blends that trap heat and moisture. We then turn the air conditioning up higher to compensate for clothing that's working against our body's natural cooling, which costs more energy to solve a problem that didn't need to exist. There's also a deliberate slowing down that comes with the yukata at home. You move more gently in loose clothing. You sit closer to the floor where air is cooler. The clothing itself changes your pace, and a slower pace generates less body heat in the first place. Here's the shift. At home in summer, switch entirely to the loosest, lightest, most natural fabric you own. Linen is ideal. Very light cotton works. Leave as much air gap between fabric and skin as feels comfortable. Let your body's own cooling mechanism work instead of fighting it with the wrong materials. Number 7. The engawa. A narrow covered veranda that acts as a thermal buffer between the home and the outdoor heat. Traditional Japanese homes often feature a narrow veranda running along the outside of the main living space, beneath the deep overhang of the roof. This strip of covered outdoor space, the engawa, serves as a transition zone. It's shaded enough that you can sit there without direct sun hitting you. It's open enough that any breeze moving through reaches you fully. And it sits between the heat of the open, outdoors, and the relative cool of the interior rooms. The deep roof overhang above it blocks the high summer sun from entering the living space directly, because in summer the sun is high in the sky and its angle is steep. The same overhang allows the low winter sun to reach deep into the rooms when warmth is needed. This is passive solar design of the most elegant and simple kind, and it was built into Japanese architecture long before anyone called it by that name. The engawa also creates a gathering spot that keeps people living outside during the cooler parts of the day, in the shaded morning and the cooling evening, rather than retreating entirely indoors and sealing themselves away from the air. Human comfort in summer is partly about being in the right place at the right time, and the engawa makes that easy by being exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Here's the shift. Create your own threshold space, a covered porch, a canopied seating area just outside your door, even a chair under a large umbrella in a shaded spot near a window. Use that space in the morning before the heat builds and in the evening when it falls. The transition zone is cooler than inside and more comfortable than full sun, and it changes your whole relationship to summer. 7 techniques, all of them free, all of them requiring nothing more than a shift in how you use your home. Read screens that block solar heat before it enters. Water on the ground to cool through evaporation. Cross ventilation that moves heat out without any machinery. Low thermal mass materials that shed heat the moment cooler air arrives. Wind chimes that signal the breeze and adjust your perception of the heat. Loose natural fabrics that let your body cool itself. And a shaded threshold space that puts you in the right spot at the right time. Not one of those requires a higher electricity bill. Several of them require nothing at all beyond a change in habit. The reason traditional Japanese homes stayed livable through ferocious summers wasn't that people suffered through it. It was that centuries of living with that heat produced an intelligent, layered response that worked with physics rather than against it. Here's the summer starter kit. This week, do 3 things. Put up a reed or bamboo screen on your hottest afternoon window, placed on the outside of the glass if possible so it intercepts the solar heat before it even touches the window. Start sprinkling water on the pavement or ground outside your door in the late afternoon, around 3 or 4, when the heat is peaking and evaporation happens fastest. And start managing your windows actively and deliberately, opening the cool shaded side in the morning and the opposite side to create a through draft, closing the sun-facing windows during the worst afternoon heat, and reopening everything the moment the evening temperature begins to drop. Just those 3. None of them cost more than the price of a reed screen. All of them work immediately and visibly within a single afternoon because they operate on physics rather than technology, and physics never needs calibration. There's a broader lesson inside all of this that goes beyond summer comfort. The reason these techniques survived for centuries in a country with ferociously hot and humid summers isn't that people were stubborn or resistant to better solutions. It's that they worked consistently, worked at no ongoing cost, and required only knowledge and attention to apply. The moment air conditioning became available, Japan adopted it, as they should. But the old techniques didn't become useless. They became complementary. Using reed screens, natural ventilation, and evaporative cooling to handle as much of the summer heat as possible means running the air conditioning less, running it at a higher set temperature, and running it for shorter periods. The energy bill reflects every degree and every hour. There's something worth noticing here that applies well beyond your home. When you understand the physics of a problem, simple, free, physical solutions often become available that technology is designed to replace, but never fully obsoletes. The through draft is still as effective today as it was 200 years ago. The only thing that changed is whether anyone bothered to learn it. Tell me in the comments which of these 7 techniques you're trying first this summer. I'll see you in the next one.